This one's wife. Classless. Barging in front of Harry again. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Many narcissists are ill-mannered. Certain narcissists can exhibit some manners some of the time, but when they're particularly under duress, those good manners fall to the wayside. We've seen repeated instances of how this one's wife engages in a bad-mannered way when she's out and about. As you know, as per my classification, she's a mid-range narcissist, which means that she operates a facade. Her narcissism needs her to appear like she is a kind and decent person, because then that facade aims at drawing people to her because they like her, which means they become easier to control. She can get more fuel from them, character traits and residual benefits. Therefore, it is in her narcissism's interest to maintain this facade because it helps pursue the prime aims. Other narcissists don't operate with a facade. What you see is what you get. That doesn't mean that they're red of tooth and claw all the time. They can still be pleasant to people, but they're far more bombastic and they shoot from the lip, for example. Donald Trump is a good example of a narcissist that doesn't operate with a facade. He calls it as he sees it, which to some people they find annoying because he speaks so directly, but it also attracts other people because they find that refreshing, that he doesn't hide behind spin. They admire that he calls it as he sees it. He sees it, of course, through his narcissistic lens, but that doesn't always necessarily mean that he's wrong in what he's saying. Nevertheless, he doesn't operate with a facade, and that means for some people he's in your face, bold, brash, belligerent, and they don't like that. For others, it appeals. The fact is that in both instances, the narcissism is operating to get to the prime aims, and with some narcissists, it creates a facade to help them get to the prime aims. With others, they don't have that, and they go about the pursuit of the prime aims in a different manner. Notwithstanding the presence of this facade, this one's wife isn't always able to maintain it. And the reason for that is that it's like two competing forces. Control, facade management. Control, facade management. Sometimes she can get the control and the facade remains intact. In some instances, the need for control wins out and the facade fractures. That's why we've seen instances where the death stare makes an appearance, or that the jutting jaw, the tensing jaw occurs. We've never seen her have a public meltdown where she's suddenly thrown a glass on the floor and leapt at somebody trying to gouge their eyes out, elbowing people in the face and generally biting them. She hasn't had a major meltdown like that, where an ignition of fury has been easy to see. What you get are often momentary instances where the facade has fractured, so you get that sudden glimpse, the sudden look. People talk about it like the mask falling away. That you suddenly see the death stare, the neck muscles stiffening, the jutting jaw. And in other instances, it occurs where she engages in a behavior over a few moments because the narcissism ultimately has to have that control and the facade falls to one side. Sometimes it's momentary. Sometimes it can be for a longer period of time because the action of itself isn't too outrageous. For example, it's not like, as I just mentioned, she suddenly starts fighting with somebody on a stage. We've seen instances where this facade management slips to one side because the narcissism isn't quite firing as it should. Examples, for instance, trying to grab the mic off the lady at the Kevin Costner event. Her narcissism says, control that woman by taking the mic, control the crowd by speaking to them. So she attempts to do so. Of course, the lady resists, and that makes her look stupid, but the facade is broken just for that instant, and then it moves on as she walks away from the lady. When they were in Whistler, Harry's shaking hands with somebody. Her need to control that person and appear to the world at large as a nice person, as being a hugger, causes her to hug this person while Harry's still shaking hands with them. It's ill-mannered, and the facade is broken for that instant. In that moment, the need for control over the person that she's hugging outweighed the maintenance of the facade. And certain narcissists have really good facades that rarely fracture, and if they do, it's for a picosecond. You'll see that with graters. Whereas with mid-range narcissists, their facades aren't always as good as they should be, and where there's particular duress, then they fracture more readily. And because this one's wife is scrutinized so often, because she has that double-edged sword of wanting to be seen, but that also means that she's exposing herself to scrutiny, we get far more instances of her showing us, not deliberately of course, those breaches in her facade management. And now you're going to see a further instance of where her facade management isn't as effective because of the need for control outweighs it. Here comes the footage.
What I'm wearing, like exactly. So when you are trying to wear it, it's like, you know, when you fight wars in the holding days, you have an army. So you're going to be wearing it like smart. You see how I move it? I move it like that, and you move it like this. And then you see, this is great. Believe me, you can dance well. That's royalty in the Yoruba. When you're wearing this, you can only dance Michael Jackson. With this one, and this is your. This is going to be the beads. These are the beads that you put on it. And you see the one on my hands, you have the one for the end. So can you wear it? Yes. And then you can wear this. These are the beads that you put on it. And you see the one on my hands, you have the one for the end. So can you wear it? Yes. And then you can wear this. Two is for you. That's that way. Two. So you wear two. These are your earrings. You do that, please. Thank you very much. God bless you. You're so beautiful. Beautiful ever single. We have many beautiful. You see the beautiful Okoya. You see my beautiful wife, Queen. She's so beautiful. She's a princess from Ghana. And also, we have many beautiful, too many beautiful ones. Yeah, beautiful women, black and so lovely. I love you so much. God bless you, and thank you very much. This is my way.
Good old Nigeria, such a source of material for your glorious narrator to assess. Here, there is a presentation taking place. And the host is talking to Harry, who you can see is expressing his gratitude for the gift that has been provided. This one's wife is further along, and she isn't being spoken to. This is a problem for her. The fuel from the speaker is going to Harry. Now, Harry doesn't need fuel, but the point is, it ought to be going to this one's wife, because in her world, she's the most important person. The fact that it's Harry who's being addressed means that she's wounded. Thus, the fury will start to rise. Now, her facade management will keep it in check to prevent her from elbowing the gentleman to her left out of the way and say, "Hey, motherfuck, talk to me instead." But she'll feel this sort of antsy sensation, this anxiety, because, although she doesn't know this, but because she's not getting the fuel, the attention, and Harry is. Her narcissism isn't allowing her to disrupt proceedings to the extent of shouting and say, "I'm here, talk to me." But it needs her to do something to bring attention back onto her. So when Harry hands the gift of the relevant material to an assistant, and the host talks about the beads, it's at this point that this one's wife's narcissism causes her to sharpen her elbows and starts to wave with her hand as if to say, "Let me through, let me through, let me through." And thus she barges her way through. Notice she doesn't get asked to come forward. There isn't reference to her saying, "I'd like this one's wife to come forward so I can present her with these beads," or even an attempt by the host to move along to her. No, she decides it's time for her to muscle in on the action, and thus she comes forward, rather rudely cutting across the vision of the man wearing the red hat and coming alongside Harry. Thus, once again, this one's wife demonstrates her rudeness by barging in front of Harry, as she's done many times before. There then comes the presentation of some beads, and you'll notice here that this one's wife once again engages in her ushering of Harry, treating him like the child that she sees him as, gesturing, "It's your turn to come forward," after she's received the beads. She's muscled her way in, got the beads, attention's back on her, thus the wounding has been dealt with. She's receiving some fuel now from the presenter, from the host, and it allows her to be generous, say, "Come on, Harry, it's your turn now," bossing him about, rather than just stepping back and allowing him to walk forward. She has to direct him, usher him, because she has to assert control over him. But lo and behold, what do you see then? The beads are taken off her, because she's got Harry's beads. Because, as usual, it's me, 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 me. Let me in. It's all about me. Let me in. I'm missing out here. Get out of the way. Let me through. Come on, give me the beads. Give me the beads. Give me the beads. Oh, wrong beads, wrong beads. Take them off again. And it shows her as the clown that she is, the way that she has to barge in front of Harry. And again, demonstrates a breach of her facade management. Now, nobody's necessarily going to sit there and go, "Oh, how rude," because they won't necessarily pick up on the subtlety of what's going on here. But it is a breach of her facade management, because she is once again engaged in ill-mannered behaviours, barging through, receiving the beads that didn't belong to her, which then have to be taken away from her. It demonstrates the necessity of the narcissist to always be the one that's at the forefront. And these two pieces of footage demonstrate that rather neatly. I'm HG Tudor. Thank you for watching.